Hello, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this month's live Legito webinar. My name is Gary Yunson and I'm the Chief Sales Officer at Legito. This month's topic is Contract Lifecycle Management Automation, and we're going to show you how Legito can help with this process. This is a live webinar, so feel free to ask questions and we'll try and answer as many of these questions as possible during the webinar. At the end of the webinar, we'll also make the recording available to you to share with colleagues or on your social media platforms. I would now like to introduce you to my friend, colleague, Mark Settle. Mark is president of Legito North America and is helping some of the largest American corporations with contract automation for over 20 years. Mark's going to give you some background to Legito, talk through some use cases, and show you how Legito can help you with your contracts. Over to you, Mark.
All right, thank you very much, Gary. Good morning, good afternoon to you, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today. So we're going to start out, first, we know we may have some people who are new to Legito joining us, and so we thought we'd talk a little bit about who we are. So in our slide presentation here, we're going to start with who we are. So Legito was founded in 2014. It was designed by an attorney. Our founder, Andre, was a practicing attorney, but also a computer scientist. So he started creating documents, and in doing that, realized some of the repetition of the things that were happening in that document creation process that could just be done in a better way. And so he wanted a solution, so he created one. And so what started as a document assembly solution really grew into an end-to-end document processing solution that we call a smart document workspace that we'll talk about today. So we now have customers in over 50 countries, and we're used by Fortune 500 companies, and you can see some of our customers here in the logos on the right. So let's talk about contract lifecycle management. I think everybody's familiar with what this process is, but just as a quick review, this is basically typically about a 5-stage process. You can add or remove a few stages based on what your business needs are. But generally, you're going to create the document. You're going to go through some kind of negotiation with the document. There needs to be some kind of approval process for that document after you've completed negotiation. Then you're going to finalize, sign that document, and then you've got some ongoing management of that document. And that management phase may include, tracking against deadlines and compliance and other things that you need to track. This has become a necessity in running your business. Contracts have always existed, but gone are the days where you'd create a contract, you'd sign it, and you'd file it away in a filing cabinet anymore. Everything's electronic. There's a lot more risk and compliance around these contracts that you need to manage. And so doing that all in an efficient way is very important to your business. And what we have found is really that time lost is most prevalent in the creation phase, but throughout the whole cycle. But typically in that creation phase, a lot of times you'll see errors and time lost in creating those documents. So document assembly can play a huge part in this process. But it's not the only piece. You need to be able to manage creating that document in an efficient way, building those business rules into a templating engine so that you can get a document out in an efficient way without errors. But then you also want to be able to walk through the negotiation of that, the approval process, and that full life cycle. Now, CLM is used really in all industries. So banking, insurance, legal, real estate, just about any industry you can name, you're going to see some use of contract lifecycle management. So just a quick slide on the benefits of automating that process. I think we've already pointed out a few of these, but I think the two biggest ones really is reducing your drafting time. That's often a big piece of that cycle, both drafting initially of the document, but also kind of drafting through that negotiation phase where you may be changing content as well. Reducing your risk and eliminating the errors. So if you're building your business logic into the document template and controlling the document, but also reducing the risk of making sure that the right people are approving the document, making sure that certain changes aren't made through that lifecycle that aren't approved, and then also, reducing your time around reviewing those documents. Then managing deadlines. So that is a huge piece nowadays. Is you've got that final document, you can't just store it somewhere. You're going to need to take action on documents that have expirations. You're going to need to take action and be able to go find documents in certain times within your business, and so you need easy access to that as well. So let's talk about Legito's Smart Document Workspace, which is our solution to help with this end-to-end document processing. So a Smart Document Workspace, we started and we're focused initially around document assembly. So that's a huge piece of what we are. We allow you to build your business rules into a template that allows you to draft that document in an efficient way. That's not the only piece of CLM. You need to be able to, do all these things we've just talked about. So our Smart Document Workspace has features to allow you to manage approval processes, to help you go through a negotiation of a contract with track changes to allow for changes to be made and redlined and compared. Allows you to track the deadlines and documents that are saved. Allows you to share documents externally so an external party can go through that negotiation with you. And then also even allows you to see an audit trail, understand and know every action that happens on a document within your process. And so our Smart Document Workspace is really what we use to manage that end-to-end document process. So we're going to show you a couple of use cases today. These use cases are both HR use cases with contracts. We're using that for simplicity's sake in the demonstration today. We think you'll be able to envision and extrapolate how you might use contracts within your business inside of Legito. And so we hope we can bring that to light for you with these use cases. So we've got a few personas in these use cases, and I'll describe each of these before we jump into the actual demonstration. So use case one, Janet Smith, who is an HR manager, she needs to provide an updated confidentiality agreement to Jose. And then she's going to need to manage that because it will expire and keep it current each year. So we're going to suppose that it expires each year so that we can show how that management works. So in that use case, we're going to have Janet Smith, who's an HR employee, will represent her in the Google Chrome browser. Then we'll have Emily Davis, who will be a manager who will review and approve the document. We'll represent her in Microsoft Edge. And then we'll have Jose Gomez, who's the employee who's going to receive that document, and we'll represent him in the Firefox browser. So we'll use different browsers for these different personas. In use case two, we are going to send an employment contract out to a new candidate. So we've got our new candidate, Matt Lawson. We'll represent him in Firefox. He's being hired as the marketing director. Janet in HR needs to get the contract out to him to be signed and executed. And again, Emily will review and approve that document through the process. So we're going to walk through these two workflows. Use case one is a little bit simpler, a little bit quicker. Use case two, we'll see a little bit more of the back and forth between users and marking up a document a little bit. So let's jump over into Legito and start our use case one. All right, so now I am logged in as Janet in my Legito Smart Workspace. So here's our Smart Workspace, my dashboard. When I'm logged into my Smart Workspace, I can see recent document records that I have worked on or that other users have worked on that I have access to. So I see recent document records, and I can see that here at the top of the screen, some created by me, Janet, and some by other users within my workspace. I can see the stages those documents are in, and I can take action on them. And then down at the bottom, I see templates that are available to me to be able to create a document. And so I could search if I had a number of templates. In this demo workspace, we've only put in 3 templates. So I'm going to create a confidentiality agreement. To do that, I'm simply going to click on the Create button. That is going to launch a Legito Smart document for this confidentiality agreement. So a template author has created this template and built in the business rules and data points that are needed to create this confidentiality agreement. And Janet, as the user, all she needs to do is really go through and fill out information. So we're going to add an effective date of today for this confidentiality agreement. We're going to put in our employee's name, Jose Gomez, and his job title is Support Manager. And we'll say he was hired on March 1st, 2021. Now you can see I can have different field types, of course, and you can see you can format dates. I can select a date with a click like I did, or I can type in a date. And so as the user, I'm just going to go through and answer the questions. As I answer the questions, help context can be provided to any of the questions as well. So you can see that's help off to the right. And then, of course, questions can be added to the document that might change or affect the output. So, for example, in the confidential information, I've got different options. Either all the information is shared, only confidential information, or specifically defined information. So I can change this, and I'll actually see the document content change along with the automatic numbering. I can even have optional language. So if I say specifically defined information, well, maybe customer information doesn't apply or business operations doesn't apply, and I can actually strike that language from the document. So Legito templates give you a lot of ability to build in business rules into the document itself. We're going to leave this as all information shared by the company. We're going to focus on getting this document through to signature. We'll say it's going to expire on 12/31. Again, we're doing that really just for the purposes of demonstration. You probably keep one for a little bit longer than that. And we're going to include the non-solicitation language, but you might notice as I kind of go through the document, I can also make comments. And so maybe Janet's creating this, but she's not sure we actually need to include this. So for the manager, Emily is going to review this. Maybe she makes a comment, do we need to keep in non-solicitation? And she adds a comment to the document. And you can see their comment right along the side. And so you can add comments anywhere in the document. We'll just answer the rest of this. We'll put governing laws Georgia, because that's where I am. And we'll get down to the bottom of the document here. One last field to fill out. We've got a fake email for Jose so that we can show this come through. So we'll enter that into the document. And then I've got company representative. So notice in this dropdown, I've got a few different users. This is actually going to control who approves this document. So we're going to use Emily like we showed in our use case, but I could choose myself or Andre in this list, and then that would be the person who'd receive this document for approval. So we set this workflow up to allow whoever selected as the company rep to actually approve the document because they're signing it. One other note here, we're going to only have Jose sign this document. We could obviously have both parties sign this document when we go through a signature process, but for simplicity's sake, we're just put a simple image in here for the company rep signature. Now let's go ahead and save this. Now the great thing about Legito is we're seeing all of the document content right in the browser. I don't necessarily ever need to look at the document, but at any point you can allow, and it can be disabled with permissions, but you can allow the document to be downloaded. So just a quick download here. I want to show that I can download the document. I can choose to include or exclude the comments or some other things. I'm going to exclude the comments and just show you if I download this in Word and open that document up, you can see I see a nicely formatted completed Word document with all of my language as I provided it with the data input, and I've got a complete document, of course, without a signature because we haven't signed this bit yet, and we'll get to that. But the great thing about Legito is we can go through this whole process without ever having to download a document because we're seeing the document content, and we're going to see here, we're going to be able to approve it looking at the document content and even go through a signature process. So I'm going to just close that. And actually what we want to do now is send this off to Emily for review. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to manager review. It gives me an option to appoint approvers. This is already set to be Emily. So I'm just going to say appoint approvers, and it automatically gets routed to her. You can actually see my Edge browser already gave me a notification saying, hey, you've got a document for your review. So Janet's done. She submitted this off to Emily for review, so she can close this document. And she's back to her dashboard. If we even refresh this, we'll see there's that document. It's now in manager review. So now let's switch over to Emily. So Emily will receive an email notification, or if she's in her workspace, she'll receive a notification. And I'm just going to refresh here, and we'll see that document right at the top of my documents that I can take action on. And so what Janet needs to do now is go in and review this document. So she's just going to click edit and go right into this document. Or if she clicked the link in her email, it would take her right into this document. So Emily is just reviewing. So she's not necessarily going to need to make any changes. She could, but in this case, we're going to say she's got everything correct. She comes down, she sees the comment, she says, okay, yeah, this is okay. Replies to that, maybe marks this comment as resolved, all set, and everything looks good. She doesn't need to make any changes. So she'll just save that with her comment update and approve it. And now it's back to Janet. So she's all done with approving. She can close her document, and we'll see now this is ready for employee signature. So Janet will get a notification. So if we switch back to Janet in Google Chrome, we'll refresh rather than clicking our notification. And we see here, this is ready for employee signature. So now Janet knows she can review this document and send it off for signature. So we're going to open that document up. She can see the comment that was made by Emily. Yeah, we're okay. We can send this out. She knows that because it's been approved as well. So what we want to do is start signing. So here we're going to integrate with Docusign for signature process. And so Legito is actually going to send this document out through Docusign for Jose to sign. So we're going to say sign with Docusign. Note that it picked up the name and email address from the document content, and I can send this off. So we'll say send. And it takes just a second to work through that Docusign API, and you can see this has been sent successfully to Docusign. So we'll actually just close this tab because we've got this other tab open. Now what we're going to do is Jose will receive an email. So we're going to switch to Firefox. We're going to refresh Jose's Gmail here, and we can see here an email waiting for him from Docusign. So it comes from Mark Settle because Mark Settle is the Docusign account that I've assigned to my Workspace. You could customize this message, of course, that comes through. But all Jose's going to do, he's not actually even going to access Legito in this case. We're not giving him an option to change anything in the document. He's simply got to sign or not. So he's going to click Review Document. And in Docusign, he's going to see the document that came from Legito. So there's that nicely formatted document that we showed in Word, but now ready to sign. So we can say Start. It'll take us down to the signature. We'll let him sign. Of course, maybe he reviews the document. It would be good if he did, but in this case, we'll do it quickly. We'll finish. And now he's all done signing this document. He can close down Docusign. Docusign emails him a copy of the document for his records, and Jose's all done. He's got a signed document for his records of the confidentiality agreement. Now Janet needs to get that document back and be able to track it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and Janet in her workspace here, it's going to take just a second for, well, actually there it just came, for Legito to get that document back from Docusign. But here you can see now this is an executed document. Now I want to show that full document record. We haven't looked at it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that document record, and it will expand. And you can see here that I see a bunch of metadata and document information. But now that this document is executed, I also see the attached signed PDF file that came through Docusign. And it's now read-only. So I can view the document, but I can no longer edit it. And then I see in key facts various pieces of information that were extracted from the document itself. That can be data points or any piece of text. So in the summary, you can see its actual language from the document, but then employee name, job title, hire date, the manager, those were all data points that the user selected. These document records in Legito can be customized on a document by document, template by template basis to have whatever data you want to have into that document record. So you track what you need to within your documents. Now you can see also I've got the expiration date coming through from the document, and I've got a deadline notification turned on. This is enabled automatically as a part of the workflow. And I can even edit that, say 3 days in advance is maybe not enough. I want to be notified 30 days in advance. I can update that. And Legito is actually going to send Janet an email and a notification 30 days in advance to this 12/31 date, telling her, hey, this contract's about to expire. You need to take action. And so you can get these automated notifications to make sure you don't miss deadlines on your contracts. Now in this document as well, I can see messages that might be used, and we'll use that in the next document here. We'll see a little bit more messages in our next workflow. I can see the approval list, and so if this was in an approval stage, I might see who needs to approve it, and if I'm the approver, I might even be able to take action from there, and I can even relate documents to other documents. Now I want to click over quickly before we wrap up this use case to manage documents. I want to show you this full document management page to be able to gather and filter and find and manage my documents. So here I can see all documents that are available to me. I can search them. So I can type in search text, and this would search metadata as well as language in the document. Now if I choose ABC, I've got an NDA with ABC company. And so I've got fully indexed documents, so I can search not only metadata for the document content. I can filter on various things such as a workflow stage. So if I want to see all the NDAs that are in draft stage, I can click on that, or what's in review stage for NDAs. I can choose documents by a specific user. So if I want to see only Janet's documents, I can filter, and then I can filter by these different things and even save those filters. I can also filter by specific properties. So I can enable document properties to be filterable in the document as well. For example, we have that manager property that picked up who was selected as the company rep. And if I choose, hey, I want to see the documents where Emily is the manager, well, there's only one, this document we just created. Let's reset those filters. And then lastly, I can select a number of documents, and I can even take action on them if I want to select a number of documents and delete them, or if I want to set an expiration of all of them at the same time or change an owner, I can take some of those actions on a number of documents. But finally, I said lastly, but two more things. I want to see a different view sometimes that will help me work through my workflow process. So let's say I'm managing the NDA workflow process. I may want to click over into a Kanban view. And that will show me each of the statuses in my workflow and allow me to easily work with the documents in that status. For example, even if hey, no, this is for review, but it really needs to go back to draft stage, I might be able to drag and drop back or forward into a certain stage with a specific document. So I can easily take action, and I can even view the full document record and the detail for this document record in the Kanban view as well. So a nice separate view to show you a little bit more of a project workflow with your documents as you're working. And then let's finally look at I'll go back to our regular view on this document that we've now executed for Jose. I may also want to, at some point, understand what happened when and who did what. And so that's our document timeline. So if I click that timeline, that will take me to a full document record page. And at the bottom of that is the timeline. And in that timeline, I can see all of the events that have happened on this document, when they happened, who did what when. On the left-hand side, you can see I can filter by specific events. So if I want to see when the document was created, or if I want to see all the actions by Janet, I can do that. I can see all of these events, I can filter down to them, and I can even export it. And then we provide in Legito a nice push API with webhooks to be able to catch any of these events and take action on them. That's really important in today's day and age of cloud solutions. Most businesses have multiple cloud solutions. Legito is a cloud-based solution. And so what our push API allows you to do is use these middleware cloud solutions like Zapier or Integromat that are built to integrate two cloud solutions together, that really no-code solutions for pulling two different applications together. You could use one of those solutions to grab one of these events, pull a document or some of the data out of Legito and push it somewhere else. So for example, you wanted to, when the document's signed, push it into iManage or NetDocuments or Google Drive. You could set up an integration with these middleware pieces very easily between two solutions because of our push API. So that is the end of our use case 1. You can see here, Janet created the confidentiality agreement, went end to end with an approval. It was signed by Jose. We've now got a document that we can track the deadline on and take action on. So we're going to pause for just a moment for any questions that may have come around use case 1.
Yeah, just looking at Mark, there seems to be one here that's come through. It's can we keep a document from moving to a different workflow stage when the approval process is running?
Yes, absolutely. And we're actually going to look at, in our next example, building out how that workflow is built out, and we'll show off that particular property. But you absolutely on an approval can set up to lock a stage so that they can't change that.
Okay, excellent. Are there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on yourself, sorry.
I was going to say, it looks like there's one other question there. Are there limitations on how many different workflows can be designed for an account inside of Legito? The answer is no limitations. And we're going to walk through creating a specific workflow here in just a moment. But yeah, you can create as many workflows as you want. And then a workflow is simply assigned to a template suite. And so you can have one workflow assigned to 15 different templates, or you can have one workflow per template, or you can have one workflow for everything. And so you have flexibility to create the workflows per your specific business needs.
Excellent.
All right. Looks like that's the questions for now. So we'll move along to use case number 2. Thank you, Gary. All right. So use case number 2 is now Janet needs to come in and create an employment contract for our new hire, Matthew Lawson. Before I walk through that specific use case, like I just alluded to, I want to show you how these workflows are actually put together in the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to settings. So Janet has access to manage these workflows. So in settings under Workspace, she can manage workflows. And so you can see here, I've got 3 different workflows set up. I've got a new employee workflow, an employee document workflow, and an NDA workflow. So in this case, I set up a workflow for each template, maybe supposing that each of them followed a slightly different process. So the new employee workflow is the one we're about to use. I'm going to click edit on this in a moment and kind of walk through the full workflow. But before I do that, I want to show you how easy it is to create a workflow and what the different stages are. So I want to say create workflow. We'll create a new one. We'll just call it new employee 2. And say create. This brings up our workflow editor. So the workflow editor is very drag and click and add to build out your workflow. And so I always start with an initial stage. I have to have a single stage, but I can name that stage whatever I want. So stages can be named whatever you want. But as I click on that stage, you'll see I've got various stage properties that I can set. I can set colors for specific stages, and those colors show up. You might have noticed that in my list of documents that different stages showed in a slightly different color on that stage. I can set up specific properties, whether I want to allow users to download documents, email the documents. I can turn on mandatory track changes in certain stages. So in a review stage, I may want to turn on track changes. So if anybody makes a change, it's redlined appropriately. I can choose what stage I want them to start signing or lock the document. I can choose whether or not I want to share it with guests, etc., or send reminders. So let's create a couple of stages and an approval process. I'm going to go vertically here just to make it easy. And let's say we want 4 stages, just as an example. So I can just click and drag and drop. I'm going to space them out a little bit, and we're going to name them here. Maybe our first stage is review, and our middle stage here is signature, and our final stage is executed document, so executed. So now if I want to have flows between any of these stages, it's easy as dragging and dropping. So if I want to add an arrow from review back to draft, I just drag and drop in between the two. If I want to do the same from signature to review, I can actually get the circle instead of the whole thing, and then I can drag and drop. Now, let's say I actually want to add an approval. You can see when I have an arrow or a flow selected, it gives me this option to add an approval. And when I add that approval, I can choose also whether it's going to be manually activated or whether, I can either add an approval with a flow, or I can choose whether I'm going to do some manual or automatic notification or activation, of a specific flow. So if this wasn't an approval and I wanted to automatically, move to the next stage when it's signed, I could do something like that as well. But here, let's add an approval. So add this approval, and you can see I get my nice approval with a green arrow. So when it's approved, it's going to go to signature, and I want to, when it's rejected, to go get that back to the draft stage. So I can drag that. And if we want to make it pretty, we've got these little handles to drag these arrows around. And so now I've got an approval, but I need to add who approves it and some different settings on that. And this is where I can set up just that question that was asked. So here, lock current stage during the approval process. So if it's being approved, I could lock the stage so the user can't move along, or I can even remove approvals if the document has changed. And so if I allow them to change the document and they change something, maybe I want to make sure that it has to be approved again, so I could remove the approval. So I've got different settings on a specific approval, but then I need to choose who approves. And so I can choose whether I want a modifiable or a fixed approval type. That means I might always have the same users approve or allow some type of selection. We'll leave this as a fixed approval, and then we'll choose a single approver, and we can choose from users. So I could type in a username such as Emily, and I'll see that user and I can add her. But even better, what we were doing in that is we were using a property. So I could actually choose a property and then choose a document property that I want to specify as the approver. And so we had that company representative that's filling the manager property in our document record. Well, if I choose that as the approver, and then I can give specific permissions and say, hey, that manager can edit the document. Well, now whoever is the manager listed on the document record is going to be who gets sent that approval process. And so you can see I can build these approvals out nice and fast, and I can build them however I want. So I can flow easily back and forth between stages. I can set up specific criteria around those stages. So let's actually just leave this and look at our new employee workflow we're about to walk through. So if I edit that, you can see this one's been prettied up a little bit. So I can see I've got 6 stages here. I'm going to draft the document. I'm going to send it to the manager for review. And then it's going to go into a candidate review process if the manager approves it. That's going to allow the candidate to review the document and make some suggested changes. Then it's going to come back and go for final approval. If it's approved, it goes to signature. If there's something, go back and forth maybe between candidate review and final approval, between some red lines. But then once it's finally approved, we can go to signatures and then execute a document. And you may have noticed here on this last flow, this is that example of an automatic activation. When it's signed, we're automatically going to move into the executed stage, so I don't have to come in and make that selection. All right, so let's actually walk through this use case now. So Janet's going to come in and create our employment contract. So she's going to come in and click Create. And here we are in the Legito Smart Document again. So for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to keep this employment agreement to a single document, but I want to point out a few nice logic things about Legito's Smart Documents again. So right at the top, we have a couple of questions: include non-compete agreement, include the confidentiality agreement, but they're defaulting to yes. I'm going to change them to no in just a moment, but I want to show you I could have a suite of documents generated based from a single template. And so here you can see as I scroll through, I've got the confidentiality agreement and the non-disclosure or non-compete agreement included, as long as I have those answered yes. And if I say no, then the business logic will remove them from the document. And so now I've got just my employment agreement to be filled out. So let's fill this out. So we're going to go through, we're going to make some information here. We'll say today we're hiring Matthew Lawson. Again, you can see the help content, the ability to add comments at any point. He's going to be our marketing director. We're hiring full-time and overseeing all marketing activities. We're going to not employ him for a specific term indefinitely, so we'll leave that as no. We don't want a probation period. We're pretty confident in him, and we're going to hire him starting 7/1/2021. All right, we're going to pay him $72,000 annually. We'll pay him once a month. Again, you can see the dynamic ability in the document here. He's not eligible for overtime. Now, a couple things about this. I added a help in here. We have certain eligibility rules for overtime in the United States based on salary that you make, and there's a certain criteria that if you make less than this, you have to be eligible for overtime. We could build some business logic into a contract to automatically turn overtime eligibility on based on how much you were paying them, of course. But I showed an example here that you might actually have a help with a link out to a site. So if I want to make sure I'm following that guideline, I could click this link and go out to that site. So if it was changing very regularly and it was harder to build the logic in to match whatever they kept changing in the law, I could still refer back to the law. For brevity's purpose, we'll be mean and say he doesn't get a bonus, and we'll leave that as yes. Now down in benefits here, we didn't show this off in the first template, but you can certainly have repeated items in a template as well. So I can enter my paid time off and sick days for Matthew. But if I wanted to add some additional benefits, you can see here repeated language in the template. I can gather as many items as I want as benefits and add them into the document. And you can see the numbering dynamic, right? So it'll all come out with the appropriate numbering. But we'll take those out. We're going to not add any additional benefits. He doesn't get any. All right, and then we'll put in termination of notice of at least 15 days, and we will require employees notice for termination, but we'll say just according to whatever the local law is. We'll put in 1 week, type 1 week per year worked for severance, and we're just about done. Yep, we're all done except for his email, so we'll put in his email. Again, a fake email we created here for our persona. So we'll leave Emily. We want her to approve again, so we're going to save this document. Now maybe we fill this all out, but I want to send a message to Emily along with this document. So I'll say, here's the initial contract with the terms we discussed. Please review so I can send out to Matt. So maybe I'll add a little message into this conversation. So the conversation is also that messages we saw on the document record, a great way to have an internal conversation so I can add whatever notes I want in here. We'll see in a little bit, I'm going to send this document to an external party. Messages are never seen by an external party. They're completely internal, only to the people who can view and access the record. So I'm going to go ahead and move this along to the manager review stage and send it off to Emily. So again, Emily gets that same notification. We're going to see a little bit of that back and forth. Actually, let me close that document. We'll close it since we're all done with it. So we're going to switch back to Emily and Edge, and Emily is going to get her notification of that employment agreement. And here again, she's going to do pretty quickly. She's going to review this, and this is such that you really could. She probably could approve this without ever having to open up the document if the right metadata is coming into the document. But here we can see actually, hey, you missed something, so maybe she needs to make a change. Yeah, this should have been Georgia, and everything else looks good. So she's going to save this, and maybe she just sends a notification out of my way. A note that says, noticed the governing law was wrong. Good to go now. So she sends a message, and then she'll approve this document. So Emily reviews it. Now Janet gets another notification. So Emily's all done. We can go back to Janet, and Janet will be able to come in and say, hey, this is ready for candidate review. Maybe she takes a quick look at it because there was a change made. So she comes in, sees this governing law. Okay, well, this is good. I can accept this, and we're good to go. So I'm going to save this document. And now I want to share this with Matthew to review. So we're all ready to go. She can say share, and notice in sharing, I can share internally, but I can also share externally. With internal sharing, you can add users or user groups. You can give them specific permissions. Maybe they can only view the document record, or edit the document. But in external sharing, that's when I want to share with a party who's not a logged in user of my site, give them a link to be able to access the document, review it, provide me some feedback. So this might be very useful in negotiating a contract where I've got to go back and forth. So I'm going to turn on external sharing. I want to share only the current revision of this document. So if I've gone through a number of saves, maybe I only want them to see the most recent save. So I have this option to share the whole document or maybe just the current version. I want to give him a one-time link. I don't want him to be able to keep coming back. I want him to give me some feedback, and we're done in this case. But I could have it be a permanent link that we're going back and forth on, and then I disable it at some point. And I do want to give him edit document permission here. I'm going to let him actually mark up the document with some specific changes that he wants. So I'm going to send him a link. We'll put in that email address, legito.matthew.lawson@gmail.com, and click send. So we've sent that email out, and so Matthew is going to receive an email. I'm going to pause for a quick drink of water. All right. So now Matthew is going to receive that. So Janet has sent this off to Matthew, and we're going to switch over to Firefox. Now that's Jose's email. Let's switch to Matthew. And in Matthew's Gmail, we see an email that says, hey, a document was shared to you by CLM Webinar. Now, CLM Webinar is the name of my workspace. I could customize that to be something a little bit better and customize the content of this email as well. But Matthew receives this link where he can just come in and review and open up this document. So he opens up the document. Now, a couple of things about this. You can see, does not have full access to the site. He's got a one-time link. He can come in and click and make changes to the document that he sees fit in his review and make comments, etc., because we've given him right. Track changes is turned on. So any changes he makes will be noted in the track changes. So we can see, like, well, maybe he gets a little picky about this and says, well, first of all, you got a typo. So I'm going to correct that, and says, and manages all current and future marketing employees. So he makes a change there. And again, you can see the red line just showing that that's a change. And we'll see that as we come back in. And he says, well, I don't want to make 72. I want to make, 78,000 annually. And I want, not 15 days a year, but I want 20 days a year. And he can even take, some of the language in here and unlock it and make a change as well if we wanted to redline that. We're not going to do that in this case. And then maybe he makes a comment and says, hey, again, he doesn't get to see that conversation that was internal, but he can add comments. If we, actually put my cursor there before I start typing. If we can agree to these updates, I'll sign today. So he adds his comment, and he's all done. So he's going to save this document. So he scrolls down to the bottom, says save. The document was saved. You can see right away Janet's getting a notification, and Emily, actually both will get a notification saying that document's been reviewed and updated by Matthew. So we'll come back to Janet in this case, and she's going to know, hey, this has been updated. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and see what Matthew's done. I'll look at these changes. Oh, wow, he found my typo and added this, so we'll accept that change. And salary, I had a conversation with Emily before. This was within the accepted range of counter, so maybe I go ahead and accept that change. I might have just chosen to leave it for Janet's or for Emily's review, but here we'll go ahead and accept the changes. Maybe we comment here, looks like he's countered within our accepted range. And maybe reply there so she sees it. Final for your review. Sends her a message along with it, and she's all done. We'll save it and send this off to Janet to Emily for a final review. So send that over for final approval. And now Emily's going to get that document. And again, it's in final approval for her to go in and review. And we left it open. So close this down. You can see there some nice capability from Legito. I did that accidentally, but you can see that you can actually get some notification if two users are trying to edit the same document. All right, so she comes in, reviews that document, and then she approves it, and it will be off for signature. Now, we're not going to walk through the signature process again. We did that. But here you can see a little bit more complex workflow, different workflow for the contract. We're able to walk through some negotiation where we actually put in some track changes. We can see that. The one thing I didn't point out that I'll show here really quickly is that at any point as well, those who have access to the full document internally, they can see the versions as well. So every save that's happened, I can go to a specific save and I can actually view that save and compare against the current document. So I can view and compare those changes as well. So every document version is saved and accessible and available to review and compare. So you can see here a nice full workflow where the document is going to go from end to end, again, to a signed document, executed, saved, so that I can manage and store that document inside of Legito. We manage all the track changes without having to download a document and upload it and download it and upload it. All of those changes happen right inside of the smart document in Legito. So another great use case for end-to-end document management for your contracts. That's the end of our use case number 2. So we'll pause briefly for additional questions, and then we have just one final item to share with you. All right, Gary, what questions do we have this time?
Yeah, we've got a few coming in now. So first of all, is it compulsory that both the parties shall use the same contract management tool whilst negotiating?
So if you want to take advantage of the track changes in Legito that we just showed off in the second workflow, then yes, you would need to do that. However, you can manage and send out a contract to them from Legito, and they can certainly download that document, redline it, and you can even give them a way to attach documents so that it could be re-uploaded into your system, but it would be as an attached document. So the only downside there is you could still use Legito to manage the workflow process through, but the third party would be uploading a document, and you'd then be working with that kind of attached document rather than the Legito Smart document with the markup. And so that is definitely feasible. Within a template, you can allow attachments, and what a user would be able to do is at the bottom of the document, they'd see this ability to upload attachments, and they could upload their redlined version if they wanted to take that approach. So the answer is no, but you lose some of the benefit of that redline document, but certainly capable still to manage the full workflow through Legito.
Excellent. And thank you for Philip, one of our users, for answering that question as well. A further question, can we negotiate and edit using the same tool?
Yes, absolutely. So edit the actual document and going through the negotiations is basically what we just showed in that second workflow. So with track changes on, we'll actually see those changes in redline, and somebody will have to accept them to control that a little bit more, but we certainly can.
Okay. Let's see other kind of questions we've got here. So one from Yang here, can users to decide that the escalation happens only upon certain conditions? For example, the escalation to the manager will only happen if there's a price change modification.
That is a great question. So that is a feature that is coming soon. So you could have logic maybe that sets that document record property of who approves, but currently you can't set like a based on a specific amount of dollars in a contract you send an approval. But that is coming very soon on our near-term roadmap.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, we move on with the
All right.
webinar. Just conscious on time and things like that.
Yep, we've got a few more minutes here. We've got about 5 more minutes we're going to spend on one final item. So we want to introduce a new feature that's coming soon to Legito, and that is custom lists. So what custom lists are is it allows you to create a list with a custom set of properties, right? That makes sense. But then you can display that list in your navigation in Legito. You can relate lists to each other, and you can customize the display of those list records. Now, why is that important? Well, say you've got a list of vendors that you use regularly that you want to be able to select and manage inside of Legito, and then actually even use them in your templates. Well, that's what this will allow you to do. So I could create a list of vendors. I could add address information, various information around that vendor, and then I can even use that in my template where I'll have a select control, that I can actually select a vendor and then link to any of the properties for that vendor in my document. Or another use case might be judges. So in legal, you work with a certain number of judges within your certain district, and so you could simply manage a list of judges inside of Legito and then select from those judges in your document. Another great use case might be, you can see this is flexible, it's a completely custom list, and you can relate documents to each other. So maybe you set up clients and matters inside of Legito, or projects if you're not legal. And within that project, you associate all the documents that you're working on that you've created within that project. And so it really allows you to have some significant control over additional customized views inside of Legito and linking them into your templates themselves. So let's take a look at that. We're going to show a little bit of that off today. Now, keep in mind, this is non-released testing code, so I may run into an error. We'll see, but if I don't, that would be great. So what I've got here is I've logged into a testing site in a workspace. I'm an admin on this workspace. I'm seeing everything, and you can see up at the top, I've actually got a couple of additional things in my list here, vendors and clause library. There are 2 different custom lists added into this site, and one is vendors and one is clause library. So the vendors list that I'm viewing right now, you can see I've got 3 different vendors. I can see properties about those vendors. I can expand a record. And so if I expand that record, I can see the key details around that record. It's not completed code yet, so a little bit still to be done here, of course. But I can see that full record. I can see the properties on that record. I can even change and customize some of this display. So if I want to change what columns show, what order, what size they are, I can do that. I can filter based on some of the properties. So if I want to see just the gold or just the diamond or both, I can filter and search on these custom records as well, of course, right? So if I search for white, I'll get just white oak processing, or maybe search isn't quite working yet. Now I can add a new record or edit a record as well. So let's just create a new record. That'll let me create a new record. We'll call it red table. We'll put in that 123 East 3rd Avenue, New York, New York. We'll let them be diamond. So you can see I can create a new record, and I can edit those records. I can delete records and take action on them. So I can add these into my navigation, and I can add whatever I want into them. The clause library example is, hey, maybe I have clauses of language that I want to manage in a list. And then again, like we said, you're going to be able to select these in your template. And so I could have basically a nice clause library of clauses that I could select in my template and pull them into a specific document. So I could also manage a list of clauses with a custom list. Now let's take a look at how these are created, and then we'll take a look at using them in an actual template. So if I go to Settings, Custom Lists, you can see here's my 2 lists, and so I can create a list or manage a list, and manage will take me to the page I was just on. But here in Properties, you can see I can set up different properties, and there could be different property types, and they'll be assigned to property groups, and those property groups assigned to your custom list. And so the property types that you can create here will be just like in every other document record. You'll have single line, multi-line text, single choice, multi-choice, dates, user selections. All the different types that we allow for in our document records will be available inside of custom lists as well. So let's look at how it might be used in a template. So just to give you a nice example here, we'll go to templates. I've got a very simple template example, but just for your imagination, as this is still a work in progress, I've got a vendor selection here, right? So I've got a drop-down list that shows me the vendors from my vendor list. And based on which one I choose, I'll see my address information come in. So I can choose a vendor, and it's pulling right from that list, and I can select which fields will, in my document, I can use any of the properties from that list in a particular location. And then one thing here is the select dropdown right now is showing just the vendor name, but we'll give you some flexibility in customizing what might display in that selection to allow you to easily identify the right record from your custom lists as well. So custom lists, we're very excited about this new feature. It's coming very soon to Legito, and will give you a lot of flexibility in managing your displays inside of Legito, as well as the selection of data inside of your templates as well. So custom lists, great new feature, coming soon, likely within the next month to our customers everywhere. Very exciting update into our application. With that, we're all done with what we wanted to cover today. So we'll pause for a few additional questions, and then we'll wrap up. So Gary, any additional questions we want to answer before we wrap up?
Yeah, Aman had one, but it's been answered already. We've got one's come through, but custom lists. That was one of the questions.
All right, let's see. And we did have a question earlier, can we route documents in the workflow automatically? So if the document signing is canceled, and that was one that I pointed out, you might have seen, when we moved from signature to executed, or the flow between those two, we set an automatic approval for when signing happens. So there are some actions that you can set to automatically advance in a flow. Okay. All right.
Yang's got a question there. Can you show quickly how to transform a Word PDF document into a template? I don't know if we've got time for that. We could pick up with Yang.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to follow up on those types of questions where you'd like a bit of a product demonstration on how to create templates. Yeah, we just don't have time to cover that in just a few minutes. So we're happy to meet with you later and set up a product demo.
Yeah, let's have a look anymore.
All right.
I think that's about. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Gary, for moderating those questions. Thank you, all of you who have attended today, for your questions. If you didn't ask a question today, but they come up later, please feel free to reach out to us. If you'd like some more personal demonstration of the software, to walk through certain features and how they might apply to your business, we'd be happy to do that. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Mark, and thanks for everybody for joining.